Oh my gosh, this is pure genius. Pure genius. Oh my gosh. This book is called The Keepers of Never. It is written by Johnston. Oh, that's me. Eric R. Johnston, Daniel Johnston, Kevin Johnston, and Paula Edwards. This is a story. This is a book of 4 short novels or novellas. I am going to read for you the prologue of the title story, The Keepers of Never. To give you a brief synopsis of the story that I will read the prologue of, The Keepers of Never. After their daughter suffers a brain injury of unknown cause, a husband and wife invent a time machine to go back in time and prevent it, only to find the past will destroy everything they have ever loved. Okay. Let us begin. The Keepers of Never, written by Scott Johnston and Eric R. Johnston. Prologue. Crying in the night. No, screaming. Luana was screaming in her crib, incessant, blood-curdling. Something was wrong. At 2 months old, she had, until this night, been a blessing, soundly sleeping through the night, giving both Tobias and Sandy plenty of sleep. Tobias, what's wrong with Lou? Sandy asked, still calm, but on the edge of panic. She ran into the baby's room, turned on the light, revealing the pink wall painted with strawberry shortcake characters, strawberry shortcake and blueberry muffin, who stood over the crib like guardians. Luana was lying on the mattress, fresh white vomit covering her face. Tobias, in boxers, meandered in behind Sandy, scratching the beard he grew over Labor Day weekend, showing more annoyance than fear or any sense of urgency. She's throwing up a lot. Probably has the flu or something. Sandy picked up her baby and looked into her eyes. It's not the flu. This isn't the flu. Something is seriously wrong with her. We need to take her in. You're being paranoid. She'll be fine. I never went to the doctor when I was little, and I'm fine. That's debatable, but doctor said to take her to the emergency room if there's ever a lot of vomiting. It could be serious. It looks like she's throwing up quite a bit. Still, better be safe, Tobias. Yeah, get her ready to go. Well, let me shave first, Tobias mumbled. Really? Our kid might be dying and you have to shave? What is wrong with you? It'll be quick, Tobias said. After we find out it's just an upset stomach, I'll have to leave for work from the hospital, so I'll only be a second. By the time they got Luana into the car, she had calmed down. In fact, she was completely out, barely responsive. Strange yellow lightning could be seen in the distance. Have you ever seen lightning like that before? Tobias asked, standing in the driveway. Get in the damn car and drive, Sandy screamed. Tobias jumped in the car and headed toward the hospital. After several minutes of silence, Sandy said, I'm sorry I yelled at you. I know I'm just being paranoid. You know how they say with your first child, you worry about every little thing? Yeah, Tobias said, but his response was drowned out by an enormous clap of thunder. Our next kid. She'll probably climb up on the roof at this age, and I'll say she's fine. A yellow lightning bolt stretched across the sky, followed by another titanic boom. After 15 minutes, they arrived at the emergency room. Sandy pulled Luana from her car seat and rocked her, unconscious, in her arms as they entered the hospital. What's the problem? The nurse at the front desk asked. Tobias started. She woke up, thrown up, screaming a little bit. She's got the flu or an upset stomach, I think. But my wife thinks she needs to assume the worst, so we're here. Though I think she's overreacting a bit. He felt really silly explaining it. Okay, sit down, she said, and Tobias and Sandy took a seat. Sandy looked nervous while Tobias tried to assure her everything was fine. To him, Luana appeared to be sleeping. They didn't wait long before the nurse called on them to triage the young patient. They went to an examination room where the nurse laid Luana on the examination table. The nurse pressed open her eyelids and looked into her eyes. Oh my God, she said. She's having a seizure. A what? Sandy asked, hysteria in her voice. But she's just lying there. She's fine. She's just sleeping. The nurse ignored her, pressed a button on the wall. I need someone for a spinal tap. What are you doing? Tobias asked. What's the spinal tap? We need to look for the presence of blood in her spinal fluid. She's seizing right now, and she may be bleeding in her brain. Tobias and Sandy stood in silence. Other nurses came in, and then a few minutes later, one cried, "We need to get the baby into a CT." The nurses rushed Luana out of the room without a word to her parents, as if they weren't even there. Where are we going? Sandy asked her husband as they followed. To a CT, I guess, but that's what I heard them say. The nurses entered a room with Luana, and Tobias and Sandy tried to follow, but the nurse said, "You have to wait outside." They started back towards the waiting room, holding each other, uncertain what was going on. But before they got there, several doctors ran past, one yelling, "The baby's dying! She's dying!" Before he could react, the doctor approached and handed Tobias paperwork. "Sign these right now," he said. "Why? What are they?" Tobias asked. "The first sheet is for blood transfusion. The second is to do anything and everything medically necessary to save your daughter's life." Tobias signed the paperwork without even reading them. "What's wrong?" Sandy asked. "She's lost a lot of blood. She's bleeding in her brain," the doctor said. "How? Why?" Tobias asked. "We don't know yet, but I should inform you. You two should contact your families. You'll likely be planning a funeral." "What?" Sandy and Tobias gasped in unison. "She's a very sick girl," the doctor continued. "And I need to inform you we have contacted CPS. CPS? Yes, Child Protective Services. According to state law, when a child is brought to the ER and the cause of the illness or injury is not immediately known, it opens an investigation against the parents." "What? We didn't do anything," Tobias said. "Doesn't matter. The state requires it." The doctor rushed off with the signed paperwork and pointed them to a private waiting room where they sat. "What just happened?" Sandy asked, tears welling in her eyes. "Luana is dying and they think we did it? Do we need a lawyer?" I don't know, Tobias said, putting his arm around his wife. "There's no way anyone thinks we did anything. This is just a formality. Our daughter is dying and we're sitting here worrying about ourselves and not her? This isn't right." Tobias nodded his head in agreement and looked down at the floor. A few moments later, a man and woman entered the room. "Mr. and Mrs. Kolinsky?" the man asked, sitting down across the small room. "Yes," Tobias said. I am Detective Collins, and this is Sarah Johnston from CPS. We're here to talk to you about little Luana, the girl that's dying, down the hall." Tobias stared blankly at the detective. "Do the doctors have any news?" "Only that for your sake you better hope they find a tumor or something." Detective Collins said flatly. What? Have you heard of Shaken Baby? That's what they're telling us. Detective Collins' smug delivery was grating. That's not possible, Sandy exclaimed. I would never, we would never harm our daughter. Detective Collins stared back while the social worker took notes. Only someone guilty would be so hysterical. With all due respect, Detective, Tobias said, our daughter is dying and... See? Detective Collins interrupted, looking at Sandy. Your husband can remain calm. Why can't you? What are you hiding? We should take you down to the station for a polygraph. Sandy gaped, uncertain how to respond. Can you excuse us, Mr. Kalinsky? We'd like to speak to your wife alone. Tobias was about to protest, but decided it likely wouldn't do any good. He left the room and went searching for a doctor to give him the latest update on Luana. It didn't take him long. When he finally found a doctor, he asked, is there anything you can tell me? She's a very sick girl, but we think she'll pull through. It's touch and go, but things are headed in the right direction. What do you think caused this? Tobias asked. Hard to tell. The detective said you guys think it's Shaken Baby, Tobias said. Shaken Baby? The doctor asked, raising a questioning eyebrow. None of us would have said that. Not even possible in this case. The bleeding is coming from her thalamus, which is deep in the brain. Shaken Baby, the bleeding occurs on the outside of the brain due to what Shaken Baby is. The brain is damaged by hitting the inside of the skull. Oh, yes, there's no sign of external trauma, so that is also inconsistent with Shaken Baby. This injury could not have been caused by you or your wife. She had a ticking time bomb in her head. If we could have looked at her before the event, we may have been able to prevent it, but now it's too late and we have to deal with the consequences. Where the bleeding occurred, she'll likely never be able to walk. Okay, so there may be no way to tell us what happened. I mean, how do we know this won't happen again? All expression fell off the doctor's face. Too many incursions, he stated. Just then, Sandy's screams erupted from the waiting room down the hall, snapping the doctor out of his trance. You think I killed my daughter? I didn't kill my daughter! The doctor looked at Tobias, who said, the son of a bitch in there is saying that you said it was Shaken Baby, and is accusing Sandy. The doctor, his face growing red with anger, said, don't worry, Mr. Kalinsky. I'll take care of this. And he stormed down the hall toward the waiting room. That was the prologue of the title story to this 4 short novel, 4 novella collection, The Keepers of Never.